All right, good evening. I'd like to call this committee of the whole meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Wu,
Here.
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Ms. Hersey,
Here.
Ms. Colasetti,
Here.
Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Ms. Wilkin,
Here.
Mr. Quisenberry,
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here.
Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the previous meetings for October 3rd, 2022 minutes. Can I have a motion?
Move to approve minutes of previous meeting 10/03/022.
Second.
Moved by Sharice and seconded by Chandra. Any discussion or changes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? To the best of my knowledge, there's no additions to the agenda. Does anybody have any additions? All right. Presentations and public input. We'll start with the mayoral proclamation recognizing Sigma Gamma Rho sorority's 100th anniversary.
We'll ask the members of Sigma Gamma Rho to join us up here, please. Come on over here. I feel like I should be wearing gold and blue. So this is a proclamation by the mayors of the cities of Urbana and Champaign, Illinois. Whereas Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated was founded by 7 college students on the campus of Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana on November 11th, 1922. The founding 7 pearls of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated demonstrated incredible courage and strength creating a Black, Greek-lettered organization on a predominantly white campus during the height of the Ku Klux Klan. And whereas, since its inception 100 years ago, the dynamic women of the illustrious Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, Inc. have continued to build on what their founders created and their commitment to greater service, greater progress in the community through sisterhood, scholarship, and service. And whereas, from 7 young educators, Sigma Gamma Rho has become an international service organization comprised of women from every profession. Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated is a 100,000 plus member, nonprofit collegiate sorority with over 500 chapters positioned across the globe, dedicated to the encouragement and promotion of high scholastic attainment, community service, and improvement in the quality of life through its chapters, members, and affiliates throughout the world. And whereas the Urbana-Champaign area Sigma chapter of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, Delta Omega Sigma, has had an RHO royal impact on the CU community through their annual youth symposium, meaningful volunteerism, and community leadership, and have held high the gold standards of dynamic sisterhood, uplifting local leadership and championing service to our community. The programs, partnerships, and sponsorships represent Sigma Gamma Rho's commitment to promoting the greater good in education, service, and leadership development. And whereas Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated is celebrating its centennial year on Saturday, November 12th, 2022, and recognizing the trailblazing 7 founders and dedicated members across the world who continue to carry the organization forward. Now, therefore, we, Diane Wolf Marlin and Deborah Frank Finan, the mayors of the cities of Urbana and Champaign, do hereby proclaim November 12th, 2022 as Sigma Gamma Rho Day in the cities of Urbana and Champaign, Illinois, in celebration of their centennial and in recognition of the Delta Omega Sigma chapter of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, their founders, and their service to the community. Congratulations. And this is for you to keep. Thank you.
Thank Thank you. And now if we have any members of the public who would like to address the committee of the whole, please step up to the microphone and state your name for the record. You will have 5 minutes.
Does this work?
Yes.
Great. My name is George, and I'm a resident of Urbana. Across the United States, including in blue states like ours, reproductive rights are under attack. Fake abortion clinics, called crisis pregnancy centers, are operating across the country, even as real clinics are being forcibly shut down in the aftermath of the Dobbs decision. These centers pretend to be legitimate medical clinics and spread misinformation about reproductive health care. Currently, they outnumber real clinics 3 to 1 across the country and are generally funded by far-right partisan organizations. Data collected by these clinics is not protected under HIPAA, and their advertising often mimics that of legitimate reproductive rights clinics. I'd encourage the council to stand up for abortion rights and take preemptive action to prevent so-called crisis pregnancy centers or fake healthcare clinics from opening in Urbana and putting our community at risk. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Is there anybody else who'd like to address the committee?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Hi, my name is Arthur. I'm also a resident of Urbana. I'm here for the same reason as George. Really, I think these so-called crisis pregnancy centers are nothing but a health hazard, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of a lot of people. Notice how they're not called clinics in any way, because they aren't clinics. They are not legally required to be like medically, like registered in any single way, because they don't provide any actual medical services. They say they do, but all they do is give out like store-bought pregnancy tests and conduct non-medical ultrasounds. They're not allowed to do anything else because they don't want to do anything else. They're not there to provide abortion services or to provide any necessary medical care to people who are in need. They're there to kind of just be deceitful, really. Because they don't abide by any medical rules, they are totally free to lie to women and other people who come in who are pregnant about the state of their pregnancy, whether it's dangerous or not. They can misstate the pregnancy timeline. They can provide unsubstantiated claims that abortion is dangerous. They can also provide unsubstantiated claims that that like carrying a baby to term is not dangerous, where sometimes it is. And so because of all this, they are a public health risk, not only to the people who come in who are pregnant, but also to their families and their community members. They delay the clients and these people who are seeking treatment from seeking actual treatment and getting it in time. And they don't have any obligation to provide any prenatal treatment, any prenatal needs. And so for all the reasons that George mentioned just now, but also I would like to stress the public health risk element of these crisis pregnancy centers. So once again, council people of Urbana, please consider preemptively banning crisis pregnancy centers in the town of Urbana. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to address the committee of the whole this evening? All right. Moving on, we have a staff report from Imagine Urbana Community Outreach Summary, and Lily is going to give us a summary of that. While they get set up, I'd just like to ask council to hold your questions until after the presentation.
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry.
Yes, just wanted to let folks know that Andrea Rudy will not be able to be part of the presentation tonight due to a family medical emergency.
Thank you. All right, Lily, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Here we go. As you know, Andrea, Rudy, and I are leading the city's comprehensive planning process. But as you can imagine, many other staff members are actively involved. Tonight, Kevin Garcia and Nick Olson are here to talk on the process of analyzing and assembling this engagement document. The community outreach summary was included in the meeting packet, and since then, there have been a few updates on the document. People have been very generous with their comments and catching a couple of minor typos and some minor errors. After tonight, this document will be posted on the city's website for the comprehensive plan page and on the Imagine Urbana engagement site. At the October 20th Plan Commission meeting, Andrea, Kevin, and Nick went over each section of the report in depth and answered some really good questions, usually, as Plan Commission's really good at generating them. I am going to go over the engagement process, and then I'm going to hit over some of the highlights of the data that was collected. At the beginning of the document, you get to address what is a comprehensive plan really briefly, and then cover the extensive and year-long process of engagement. This is really an iterative process that included a lot of experimentation in adapting to community groups' needs and the changing COVID-19 conditions. It's really important to note that this isn't an in-depth report on any one neighborhood or a little about each neighborhood. These were community-wide questions being asked about future needs and what people love about Urbana. The comprehensive plan is a long-range policy document pointing the city in a direction that reflects this needs and strengths information collected through this kind of engagement. The next section covers an extensive and iterative process of engagement that was covered over 2021. This is the most important part of the document, really. It covers how extensive, long, and intentional we worked to make our engagement process as inclusive as possible. There was a lot of experimentation, a lot of relationships being built, and in very difficult time for engagement. Honestly, it was a perfect time to experiment. Starting in mid-2020, City Council had a few presentations on timeline and some of the early steps of the comprehensive plan. Staff immediately started working on details for branding and eventually developing ImagineUrbana.com with Bang the Table. Videos were made of different government agencies discussing their role in the community. There were also videos made of people in Urbana talking about why the comprehensive plan is important and impactful in their lives, and the need for a comprehensive plan and for everyone's voice to be included. If you haven't seen them, they're really pretty cute. And you can bring a little touch of nostalgia for the early days of the pandemic. I was honestly very excited at that point to reach out to people in the community and talk about planning issues. So late in 2020 and early in 2021, we met with community partners via Zoom meetings. Due to in-person COVID restrictions, we started planning summer 2021 events, knowing very well that some of these events may not be held. We received enthusiastic support from numerous community groups. Everybody was very generous with their time on the citywide effort. During this time, we also developed a SMS texting survey that was accessible from any cell phone. This survey could be taken in English, French, Spanish, and Chinese. You didn't need a smartphone. We found a startup company that was willing to design the prototype software at a minimal cost, which the company then planned to market to other municipalities across the country. After launching ImagineUrbana.com in February 2021, we worked to involve other voices in the process. This was a part of the process of engagement that I just really can't stress enough, and it was the role of the University of Illinois' Urban and Regional Planning Department, and in particular, Plan Commission Chair and Professor Dustin Allred. In those early days, we were already planning on working with the class at the U of I, but we were starting to see a start of a concerning trend that only one neighborhood of town and a little bit of a couple of other areas, but mostly one area of town that was being really highly involved and engaged in the process, leaving out a lot of other areas. While Andrea and I focused on getting the word out to community groups and stakeholders, the U of I students were able to choose a few different groups in Urbana to expand the relationships with stakeholders and really engage communities in different ways. At the beginning of the semester, students organized neighborhood Zoom calls, hybrid meetings with Housing Authority Youth Build Group, talked on community radio shows, put up flyers in businesses, in workplaces to interview in Spanish and also for second and third shift workers. And as vaccines started to become more common later in the semester, really setting up regular tabling at the Indoor Farmers Market, Salt and Light, the Urbana Free Library, and so much more. Over the summer, we had 2 interns, and they helped us experiment with senior center discussion sessions, just weren't being captured in the website, as you can imagine. And Urbana-wide bingo with activities to get people out to seeing the community and get the word out about the survey, and so much more. The summer of mostly outdoor activities had staff busy getting the word out. Park events, school district registration, immigration services at CU Public Health District, grocery stores, many of them businesses, flyering, downtown get down, outdoor movies, and many, many, many events. Despite this energy, we started to see that numerous parts of Urbana just really weren't represented well in the engagement. Luckily, urban and regional planning class at the University of Illinois partnered with us again to creatively, but most importantly, physically, go out into various areas to get input. This is probably what I'm the most proud of, and we moved at a very slow speed of trust. When knocking on doors and having tough but beautiful conversations with Urbana residents who may have never been asked or participated in city planning in Urbana before. The map here, and I'm going to skip some sections. You see a timeline. The map here shows a couple of areas that are in colored. There's kind of small, they're representative of in bigger, larger areas, but those are areas that really every door was knocked on. We had a surprisingly large amount of people open their door and talked with us. So the map shows just the areas where every door was knocked on. It's not the only part of the engagement that the students were involved in. There were classroom visits in schools. There were stores that were visited, Gateway Shops, El Progreso, Family Dollar, Best of Africa. I even starred in a PTO meeting at King Elementary, starring as myself, of course. Not everything was a success. We tried some things that just that we learned a lot from, but we definitely tried anything we could. For instance, reaching out to daycare home operators for neighborhood issues and citywide feedback, it was a difficult time for us to do that, and it was hard to get that kind of input. Learned a ton, and what you can see on that numbers page in the document is a summary of some of those efforts. Really a ton of, I think, 24 neighborhood meetings, 26 community events that we were at. There were 11 K through 12 parent and student meetings and events. And it wasn't just schools, of course. It was also Head Start and their events and their groups. Just a lot of people opened up their doors and their space to letting us come in and talk about the importance of comprehensive planning in Urbana. And a lot of people who'd never heard of this process or participated with us before, very kindly and generously answered some of our questions. We even sent a postcard to every household in Urbana, just trying to see if we can also get people who are new to the community. So in processing this input and these conversations, there's idea wall posts, there's surveys, there's text questions, et cetera. All of that took a lot of effort from Nick Olson here. And as you can see on page 6, you can see that we kind of came up with 3 buckets, these themes. And so there's housing and neighborhoods, city and community services, community health and safety, transportation and infrastructure, cultural and economic vibrancy. And while you can see also down below, color-coded with the same colors above, there are kind of sub-themes, and you can see these are word clouds. These are meant to be proportional. They are not meant to be taken as like scientific ranking by any means. You can see that we just try to do our best in kind of categorizing some of these things, but some things overlap with each other, and that's okay. This is just a process of, collecting as much as we could from each comment that we got. And you can see there's an example quote in there, and it's color-coded for every different bucket it would get sorted into, and from there, those particular areas would be put into sub-themes. So just to be clear, these are the challenges and opportunities that exist for Urbana, and from our input. It should be noted that there were a couple of minor corrections from the word clouds that were in your packet. Again, this is just the most recent copy, and it will be posted online. The next page went into a couple of other really interesting responses from our questions. Again, we consciously chose really qualitative questions, and of course, people had a wide variety of answers. And in many ways, the word clouds kind of indicate just a wide variety of people who were asked. There's something that kind of speaks to that. You can see where people love to take others and to show off Urbana. You can see what you love about Urbana, and some of the answers that you can see also why people choose to live in Urbana. Those kind of had a couple of really common answers to it. A quick note about the different survey types, and you can kind of see this. The beginning, you see this, this circular bar chart. When you see this, you can kind of see that there are a lot of different survey types that we had to convert into very similar questions, and they were kind of similar. A quick note of that, there were differences between in-person responses versus website survey responses, and those differences are very important, in which generally they reach different demographics. For example, in-person respondents were more likely to mention food access, public safety, gun violence, and inequities in white flight within the school system. In response to what should Urbana's priorities be for the next 10 to 20 years, education was mentioned more frequently in in-person surveys versus website surveys. Economic development, however, had numerous mentions in both in-person and website surveys, emphasizing the need for more jobs, businesses, and opportunities throughout Urbana. In response to why you choose to live, work, shop, and study in Urbana, website survey respondents more frequently mention connection to the University of Illinois. On the other hand, in-person responses often mention the university, but also family ties. They were more commonly cited. For the same question, website survey respondents were more likely to mention the ease of getting around Urbana, walkability, and nearby access to school, work, and stores than in-person survey respondents. This could be related to the unevenness in development patterns and accessibility issues to goods and shops in different neighborhoods. In the document, we wanted to give a couple of examples from real quotes from people that illustrated or touched upon points of the analysis. I'm going to skip over the theme pages. They're really great. They're really brief. You should totally read them. I'm sure you all have. That was for the residents at home watching. But I am going to go to page 13 because that's the future considerations section. And I think that sums up the theme pages really well. It's a really good synopsis of these topics. These are very broad, and they help guide drafting for the more specific trade-off questions in the next round of community engagement. They can help create draft goals for the public to review, and staff can prepare opposing trade-off questions. That's really important. We ask a lot of this kind of things instead of asking the public, please, what should be our goals and objectives for the next comprehensive plan? We ask them what are your favorite parts of Urbana? What are the things that you really think we need to be focusing on for the future? And those are the kinds of input that we got. And so these are very broad, but these are going to be really helpful for making sure we draft really good trade-off conversation questions for the next phase of public engagement. And then lastly, just wrapping up, we have a back page just dedicated to next steps of the planning process. Please join our newsletter if you are not on it already. You can join on our website, imagineurbana.com. And our next step is to engage the public in more in-depth discussions of community engagement priorities. This community outreach summary, again, it will be shared, but it will also be shared alongside chapters of Examine Urbana, and that's our existing conditions project and story mapping, which will look at the current state of city matters as well as propose future considerations. Different kinds of future considerations. There are much more questions for you to think and contemplate after you just read a lot of data. The next phase of community engagement will take place in early 2023 and will involve interactive exercises that allow participants to make decisions based off of different trade-offs. The feedback from those discussions will help provide the guidance for drafting the new comprehensive plans, goals, and objectives, and implementation tasks. The next plan will encompass the community engagement priorities for future considerations, suggested action items from the community's trade-off exercises, and the lessons learned from the 2005 comprehensive plan assessment, which was about this time last year and is online right now. Most importantly, sustainability and equity will be addressed in every aspect of the city's future comprehensive plan, and that was definitely reflected in the public input that we got. Are there any questions?
All right, questions for Lily? Chandra?
On the map page,
Yeah.
what did the numbers on the map mean?
Oh, that's a really good question. Those are community events, and some community events, because, like, for instance, you can see the 12 in downtown. That's a really tight geographic area, and that is the whole city on the page. So we just clump them all together to say 12. there were a lot of events in downtown adjacent.
All right, other questions? Grace?
Thank you. Thanks so much for the presentation and all the hard work that's gone into this. The little bit that I've seen over the years, I've seen a lot from the little bit that I've seen. And I really appreciate the intentional outreach and inclusivity and acknowledging that some groups or some areas are more vocal than others, and being intentionally inclusive like that. I have a few questions. Did you say that the 2005 comprehensive plan assessment is online?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, if you go to the government sub-header on the top of the website, and then you navigate, you just click on that, the drop-down menu. Before you get to departments, it's right above that. So it's like comprehensive plan, community development. As that should be the first department
Plan.
mentioned.
Okay, and there's a review of the 2005. Okay, I see.
Yep,
Cool.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
good if you want a refresher. It's really a lot more research.
Yeah, thank you. And then I appreciate what you guys have taken away from the 2005 plan and saying that this needs to be more community-wide and not focus on certain neighborhoods, and especially not certain ones more than others. But could you explain from the planning aspect, where does that fall, like a plan for certain neighborhoods as like a separate thing or in the TIF, or like where does that fall in the terms of planning?
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned an example too, like TIF. So generally in a comprehensive plan, it's just a community-wide, it's the highest of the plans in the hierarchy. And it really just kind of encompasses the neighborhood plans. You can have neighborhood plans that would sit inside a comprehensive plan. They're guided by those larger values. But every community will have really specific needs and for more specific land use. So for a good example, 2005 comprehensive plan had one community try to put some of those needs on there, and they weren't very well addressed because they were in this future land use instead of in a more complex, rich conversation about what those community needs were for that area with a more like level or even kind of implementation. And so there's a lot of benefits for having those smaller neighborhood area plans. TIF would be another one of those. That's an area plan or strategic. It'd have a lot of different stakeholders and having much more specific conversations to that area, and it sits within a comprehensive plan.
Great, thank you. And then my last question so far was, what's this final product? Would it be similar to the 2005 comprehensive plan, or this seems like, I don't know, more robust and more visually pleasing and things? Like, are we working towards like, that kind of traditional document, or what's the final product for this comprehensive plan?
There's some aspects of comprehensive plans that do have to be traditionally met. We do have, state regulations that are important for us to meet those requirements. If you ever tune into a plan commission discussing it, they really like to remind staff about that, and it's a great conversation to have. There's modern plans today have a little bit wider focus than the 2005 comprehensive plan. The 2005 comprehensive plan was really focused on future growth and development in a really outward kind of way, and that was reflecting kind of what comprehensive plans were at that certain point. Ever since the 1936 zoning ordinance in Urbana, the 1950 general development plan of Champaign-Urbana, which was our first comprehensive plan, it's just kind of taking that outward growth, explosive growth management process. These days, I think that we're in a place where we haven't seen as much growth and explosive growth, and there's a lot of considerations to be had about being on the same page with many different departments and having a broader city policy document that's more inclusive to more. I think there was only one in the 2005 plan, one goal or objective that mentioned the fire department, and absolutely zero for public safety police. So I think today comprehensive plans do address that, because development and everything is tied to public safety. It's also tied to police and fire elements, neighborhood health.
Thank you. So it sounds like you're saying it will be somewhat similar to the 2005 plan with some of the requirements and what it needs to meet. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think hopefully you see a really refreshing take on some things like future land use, but you'll also see more departments being involved in greater depth for the goals and objectives.
Great. Thank you.
All right, other questions? Okay, there's no other questions. I'd like to thank Oh, I'm sorry, Chandra.
It's not quite a question, but a comment. But I was looking at the future considerations, and they sort of really align with the council goals that we established. So it's good to see that, you know, what we're working toward as our council goals are really what the people are looking for us to do.
And on the other hand of that too, it really says a lot about how the community engagement is a snapshot in time. So it's really important that, you know, if council goals are set for, say, 3 or 4 years, maybe every 5 years, you could see maybe a comprehensive plan just update instead of it going for 20 years and then being something you have to just toss and start all over.
Yes, absolutely. And since you say that, what would an every 5-year update look like to you, instead of doing this huge overhaul of a plan? But how would we just do minor updates?
So that's where you can take a look at, with different stakeholder groups, take a look at what's been working well. The last comprehensive plan didn't do anything for measuring and measurements for what success looked like. And I think that kind of showed in where there was uneven implementation successes. We then had to kind of go back and retroactively kind of decide whether this was a success or not. And I think when if you do have metrics and we can agree on those metrics and what that looks like and that implementation looks like, and you have them and they're in a practical level that's not, you know, we're getting it all, or something that, for instance, a plan that would cost the same amount as 30 years of your city budget, but you're meant to do it in 20 years, then you kind of can come back and see what's working, what's not working, and then how you would draft that. And it becomes more iterative instead of a whole rewrite process.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and excuse me, Lily, I'm glad you brought up some of those things right there, because those are some things that I'm thinking about. I think we don't know exactly how we're going to do it, but I would like to see this plan be more web-based, or actually web-based, whereas our current plan is pretty static, and it's kind of hard to update. So it's really difficult to have it be more iterative, like Lily was mentioning. So if we want to make a change now, we can make changes. We have made changes. We've made a lot of changes. But it's really hard to sort of get your hands on the current comprehensive plan as it is. So if we could do something that's web-based and that's more easy to update, then we can have this sort of plan that's more of a living plan that we can change gradually over time. So if something like 2008 housing/financial crisis happens, we can make changes to address that more in real time than, than we could with the plan that we have right now. Also, as Grace brought up, things like neighborhood plans. I would love us to do neighborhood plans on sort of a rolling basis going forward. And those could be integrated into a web-based plan a lot easier than they could currently. So then you just kind of add those on, and it would be much more seamless, and it would be like a living document, as I said. This is the theory. We'll see if we can do this.
The really interesting thing is to see if there's actually cost and time savings if you can maintain a bit of a rolling part, and also maybe 5 years, or what is reasonable amount of changes. For instance, there's some things that we haven't developed, or we did try and we developed, that we could continue to use, and some things we haven't developed that we could use for different neighborhood groups, that could have possibly some benefits in just replication and being familiar with it.
All right, any final questions, Chandra?
Oh, one more. You mentioned how this was sort of state mandated. What is the timeline for us to have this completed, or is there one?
There is not one in Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a pretty older state statute or mandate. And so there's not a lot in there as about timeline or about how often things have to be updated. That's a little bit different. And just as an example, there's plenty of states, for instance, who said, this is more impractical for smaller communities. So what if we had every 5-year requirement to update? And then, communities, for instance, in Washington State have the requirement. And so now Seattle kind of has a really easy, and it seems like pretty systematic way of updating your comprehensive plan in a timely fashion.
Thank you.
Diane,
This isn't a question. Can I make a comment?
you can make a
Thank
comment.
you. I just wanted to say thank you to the staff and Andrea Rudy, who's not here, for this incredibly inclusive and comprehensive process that they've followed. The amount of engagement that has gone into, and information that's gone into this plan is just exponentially more than what went into the 2005 plan, and I think it really is way more reflective of our community. So we're excited about what we've seen so far. I love how it aligns with council goals and the general direction that people want to go in anyway. And when it comes to updating and being web-based, luckily, we are also replacing the city's website over the next year and a half. So there will be a wonderful platform to house this plan, and hopefully it'll make it easier to update as we go along. So lots in the works.
All right, so now I get to give my comment. I don't have any questions. I just want to commend the team. I know that there are hundreds and hundreds of hours that you put into this, and to summarize it into 12 pages is commendable. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that not only have you and Andrea been working on this for 2 years, but other staff members have also contributed a significant portion to all of this. So thank you very much. And I don't think there's any more questions, so you're done. All right, the next item on the agenda is new business. I don't believe we have any new business. And now we are up to council input and communication. So if you would like to speak, you would have 3 minutes. Would anybody like to offer?
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize and appreciate an event that I got to go to this past weekend with No More Bound and the Well Experience for the book launch for Excuse Me, I Have Something to Say, Black Girls Speak. It was incredible to get to hear so many young folks and other community members read some of their poetry and hear a little bit about the incredible work that folks are doing at the Well. So just wanted to congratulate them on that event and the newly published authors.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm sure others are going to mention this too, but I just want to congratulate or appreciate the first responders this morning and their prompt professional response to the high school.
Grace?
Thank you. Wanted to just do a reminder that our ARPA application is due soon, November 16th, so anyone who's in the process of applying, don't forget to submit by then. And I also just wanted to give you an update on the Pumpkin Smash event that we had last week. This was thanks to the Landscape Recycling Center, which is partnered with the city, Champaign County Environmental Stewards, nonprofits, and the Urbana Sustainability Advisory Commission. We had 29 visits and collected 137 pumpkins, equaling just over 1,500 pounds of pumpkins that are going to be turned into compost at the LRC and sold as compost there and go back into the ecosystem. The LRC is accepting pumpkins for compost for free all fall, and people can drop off and pick up materials all year round during open hours with fees apply. Also, a few weeks ago, we went to a nice event by Planned Parenthood and looked at their expanded clinic. And I think they mentioned that Champaign County had a resolution of being a sanctuary county. And so that's definitely something that I'd be interested in exploring for the city. And then especially the public comment today got me interested in learning more about these fake crisis clinics. So I'd definitely be interested in exploring some of those options some more. And then last reminder for people to exercise their rights to vote with Election Day tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, any other council? Sharice?
I just wanted to kind of do a little update regarding Ellis subdivision meetings and talks that we've had with the city and my involvement with the community group. And we've had some very productive talks as to how the situation with the sewer and everything will be resolved. So I don't want to give any more information until we're actually sitting and hashing out all the T's and the I's and everything, but I did want to say that I'm very glad that that we are making progress.
Chandra?
I wanted to remind folks that Wednesday evening, the Economic Development Team is hosting the Downtown Realm Study at Phillips Rec Center from 5:30 to 7. Great way to give your input on what we want downtown Urbana to look like. I've gone to the last couple meetings and they've been really great, and what the team has already come up with as far as the ideas that's already been given has been very amazing. So I encourage you to come down to Phillips Rec Center on Wednesday, meeting from 5:30 to 7. And to back up what Grace said, please exercise your right to vote tomorrow before 7 p.m. There's so much on the line right now. We have so much that we want to do in our little city of Urbana, and we've constantly talked about our budget. Where do you think that money comes from the state, from the federal level? And so making sure that we have elected officials that see the importance of, funding things like affordable housing and reproductive rights and things like that. So make sure that you're exercising that, your voice, so that your community looks and feels better. Thank you.
It's probably the best promo I can, I'll just say ditto. Yeah. All right. I think everybody said, oh, no, Diane.
I would just add, if you don't know where Phillips Recreation Center is and you're going to the Public Realm Study on Wednesday, it's 506 West Stoughton, Urbana, just down the street that way. And I would just like also to thank the first responders who responded to the threats that were called into both the middle school and the high school this morning. Law enforcement officials from the Urbana Police Department, the University of Illinois, Champaign County Sheriff's Office, Illinois Secretary of State Police all responded, assisted in the evacuation of the students, redirecting people to the reunification center, and ultimately clearing both schools. The FBI will be assisting the Urbana Police Department in the investigation of these calls.
Is there school tomorrow morning?
There's no school tomorrow because it's election day and everyone should be voting tomorrow if they haven't voted already. So no school tomorrow. And I would also announce that city offices are closed on Friday because it's Veterans Day.
All right. Well, with that, no further business before the committee. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.